Barely achieving escape velocity versus the Rockets. MPJ with a back injury. And how much are the Nuggets in trouble? This is Locked On Nuggets.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast. I'm your host, Matt Moore, senior NBA writer for the Action Network, Nuggets insider for 104.3 The Fan in Denver. He is Adam Mares. He's director of content for DNVR, the DNVR.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Adam_Mares. As always, thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We really appreciate you guys choosing to make us a part of your week. Excited to be with you as the Nuggets twists and turns of the regular season toil on. On today's show, we'll talk about the win over the Houston Rockets, the very narrow win over the Houston Rockets. In segment 2, we'll talk about the MPJ situation, the injury, and what it means going forward based off the information that we have. In the third segment, time to evaluate the panic button. Whether or not we need to flip open the little container over the panic button. Does the finger need to be on the panic button? Should we leave the button alone? We'll talk about all that.
Just review the manual for the panic button. Make sure
do you want to be familiar with how the panic button works, all those things and more? You can subscribe to us wherever you like podcasts. So if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, but I want to listen to it on Spotify, you can find us on Spotify. But I want to see like a visual version of you. As someone called me a bald geek earlier today on Twitter. If you want to see what a bald geek I am, you can catch me on the YouTube show for this show. We would love it if you went to our YouTube page and subscribed and liked, press a little like button and subscribe to us. That would help us out so much. It's a great way to catch us and have us on the background. If you're at work on the computer, supposed to be doing work, and you just want to have your headphones in, listening to us, you can do it that way. We're available on all platforms. All right, Adam Mares. On Saturday, Nuggets get the win.
Yeah.
95-94. I'm
under.
I guess, I'm excited. 95-94 score, so I'm excited to see what's on TRL tomorrow, and I'm going to be getting some pogs because we're back in the 90s, apparently, with these scores. The Nuggets managed to shoot 40% from the field, 22.5% from three-point range. They do go 14-17 from the line. Very important. They wind up with fewer turnovers, and they get the win over the Houston Rockets, who I will say, I don't necessarily want to say that the Rockets played well, because if you basically take out Jae'Sean Tate and Daniel Tice, they also shot like garbage. Denver gutted out a win. MPJ injured in the, I believe, first quarter, exits the game with what looked like a leg injury, and then later was described as back tightness. So we'll talk about that in segment 2, but no MPJ, no Jamal Murray. A bad Rockets team, but they do get the win in the end off of Aaron Gordon hitting 2 late threes, and Jokic with the block as Defensive Player of the Year. Jokic continues to make his push.
Man, you mentioned, I'm not surprised you mentioned another momentum shifting reason the Nuggets won. The Facu Campazzo buzzer beater 3-pointers. You talk about poor shooting. So the Nuggets were atrocious, 9 out of 40. That's 22.5%. But you get 3 3-pointers from Aaron Gordon, 2 from Facu Campazzo, because of course think about how much worse Denver shot outside of Facu and Gordon. Facu and Gordon saved their percentage by quite a bit, which is wild in this game. Look, the Nuggets won this one, and it saved a lot of, I think, panic, especially, now not knowing about Michael Porter Jr.'s future. And it sounds like, the team shut down practice. You could speculate for why that was today. But generally speaking, when a team cancels practice at the last minute over the last 2 years, that means there's some type of protocols that go on. Of course, they announced.
Oh, okay, hang on. There is no... I'm open to being wrong. I have not been informed of this. There is no scenario I can find for them canceling practice abruptly after having it scheduled this late.
Right.
There's no way that gets canceled unless it's something COVID related.
Okay. All right. I'm covering my own self here, Matt, but you're right. They just so everybody's clear, I don't think they canceled practice. Practice was scheduled from 11 till 12, 15-ish. Really, they don't give an end time. They just say at 11, and then media is expected to arrive. They canceled the media portion at like 11:55, meaning they probably all got together at the facility, and then something happened. So again, we don't know. We don't have any confirmation, but this day and age, more often than not, when something like this happens, there's some type of COVID something around it. But for the record, the Nuggets did release their game notes for tomorrow night's game, and they would have mentioned, I think if there was like a player out for that reason, they would have mentioned it. Not the case. So there's a long way of kind of saying there's a lot of uncertainty around the team right now, just a lot of chaos, it seems, around the team. And if you would have lost that game and then you enter the chaos, things would have just felt 100 times worse. But at the end of the day, you're the king of this. This was a November win. Was it ugly? Was it painful? Was it not inspiring? Was it all those things? Of course. But in November, the only thing that matters is, did you bank a win? Nuggets did.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is, look, if the league-wide, if shooting is going to be depressed like it has been, if it's going to be depressing as it has been in most cases, if you're going to see like all these offensive struggles, then like on top of like you and I started out in preseason, we're like, this is going to be rough for a while. Like they're not going to get off to a hot start, which is why when they went out and won the first two, particularly the one in Phoenix, right?
You almost readjusted expectations. You're like, hey, maybe there's something, but now here we are. I said 5-5. I think after 10 games, they're 5-4,
right? And they're going to be 5-5 because
they have a very tough game tomorrow against Miami.
Yeah, this is a tough game that they got coming up versus Miami. I'm not expecting a win in this one, but look, I wasn't expecting a win versus Phoenix. So, like, this is what they've done, right? They've always kind of done this: is they find losses in unexpected places, they find wins in unexpected places, and in the middles of both, they're kind of pretty good. I think, in general, I would say that this one, it was a Saturday early start. No one really knows why. Like there's, the international fans are very excited. They're like, but it's for us. We get to watch. I'm like, I think it's good that you get to watch. It's a bummer that the time differential is a problem, but like, I think the team was a little flat because of it. Just me personally. I think the team was flat because they don't like, they're not going to get up. The starters aren't going to get up for Houston. They're not going to get up for Orlando. They're like, all of these bad games are going to be trap teams because they do not have the floor without Jamal. They should have the floor because their starters should provide it. But one, they didn't have it because MPJ wasn't playing well before, and now he's not around. And so, like, you take that out, and you just don't have the floor offensively. Like the Nuggets should. It was
a weird game because Michael Porter. They didn't prepare for him being out. They didn't expect him to be out, and it should be noted he went out with 7 minutes left in the game, and he was a +8, and that included a blown layup that was sort of, we think, maybe the culprit, or at least it was right before he came out of the game. So Denver was in control. Kind of have that moment. Things kind of spiral out. Who knows how the game would have gone otherwise? But this was a game, though, Matt, that you look at Jokic's line: 28 points, 14 rebounds, just 2 assists. And then you look at everybody else. Will Barton, I thought, had a fantastic start to this game, but he finished 7 of 19. He did get 15, 7, and 6, so he filled up the stat sheet. But I thought he was good early, and then just kind of pedestrian the rest of the game. Aaron Gordon hit those big shots, but literally the only thing he did was hit those big shots offensively. Monte Morris was a little bit off this game, and then the bench was the same story. So a lot of it is the talking points for me are somewhat recycled, other than the Michael Porter piece. Bench looked bad. Starters looked good with Jokic, and inconsistent from the rest of them, and that equals a tight game.
If you told me that MPJ got hurt, that Bones Highland went,
he was bad. He was
1 of 7 from the field and was bullied on defense, because he was bullied on defense. If you told me that Facu Campazzo was a -20, and you told me that Jokic scored under 35 points, I would have been like, they lost.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
They had all the signs of a loss.
Yeah, and and look, it took a block by Jokic at the end. It took Aaron Gordon hitting, in particular, the contested, 9-1-1.
Oh, it was a grenade. Yeah, they hand him a ball at the end of a shot clock, contested.
Yeah. But I will say, defensively, they're doing the job that they need to do. Whether that holds or not, they're doing the job they need to do.
They're the number 2 defense in the NBA.
Yeah, I think
that.
Look, they are competing. You want to know here? I actually have one for you. Do you want to know a stat that actually is really important?
Let me hear it.
This is the one that I found. The Denver Nuggets have the number 1 transition defense per possession in the NBA.
Wow, interesting.
They are averaging only 16.7 transition opportunities per game, despite the turnover problems, and they're allowing 15.6 points per game off of turnovers per game.
You know what's funny about this, Matt? I'm telling you, we still haven't really solved basketball, even with analytics. There's still so much to learn because the Nuggets have not been a great offensive rebounding team. They haven't been a very good dribble drive team in terms of just living in the paint. And I think some of this is all connected. If you're not in the paint getting rebounds or driving the basketball, you have a better chance of being back. Yep. And so it is, I would call their transition defense more likely to be a happy accident of their inability to get to the rim. But nonetheless, it is an interesting sort of trade-off that you're seeing, even if it's not one that they
I mean, look, here's the crux of it, though, is like, and this is very much a differential between A, what fans want, B, what analysts want, and then C, what I think coaches want, which is like solve the problem, like whatever gets you the win. Right. And because this is the thing is like with Malone, instead of being like, we're broken, I got to fix the offense, whatever we got to do, he's like, if we got to find way, if this is who we got to be, this is who we got to be. If this is like, if we're going to grind out wins offensively and look, or grind out wins defensively and look ugly, that's okay.
Right.
You know, because that's like tough basketball.
The Nuggets are the football team equivalent of the team that just runs the ball, dominates time of possession, but isn't very good offensively. And it's just like at the end you look up, how'd they win? Oh, they had the ball for 2/3 of the game.
Yeah. Kind of interesting. I'm trying to figure out like how I feel about this. So the Rockets made a big run in the second quarter, and some of the starters were on court for that, but not like Jokic comes back in at the 8:19 mark, and the Rockets have a 7-0 run in there, and they're up, and then the Nuggets kind of like get it back under control going into the half. Like it was, I'm very interested in those kind of splits because that to me is like the most crucial part of the game. Is the Nuggets seem to start every half they start off well,
right,
and then the bench comes in and completely fucks it up.
Yeah, the second and fourth quarter starts are almost always bad. Almost always bad. I thought the fourth quarter start was the big one here because if you remember, the Nuggets went on a 9-1 run, and you thought, oh, okay, Jokic is going to get a break here. This is they bought him a couple extra minutes, and Houston even called a timeout. And they came out, and I think it was an 11-0 run that they responded with. So you thought, okay, 9-1, you did a good job. Then 11-0, Jokic comes back in at the 7:20 mark. I thought par was 7:30. That was like he'll come in at the 7:30 mark. There was a brief second where you thought they might have bought him an extra minute or two, but that 11-0 run or whatever it was happened so quickly that all of that extra time you thought it bought him disappeared.
They had an 18-6 run in the fourth.
Yeah.
From 8:33 to the 2:46 mark. And the Nuggets still won this game.
Yeah.
Like, and that's not, I don't even necessarily think that that's like that just shows you how good this team is. It just shows you like, no. This was found money. They probably should have lost this game.
I mean, they were lucky that it was the Rockets is really what it was. They were lucky that it was a team that really has to get lucky to kind of beat you. And, but nonetheless, again, you know, a win's a win. You bank these ones, you count them as better than the Cleveland game. That was a loss, you know, which was kind of similar. It felt like the Cleveland game, to be honest with you.
Right now, the Cleveland loss doesn't look bad.
I mean, no, I disagree. It still looks bad in that Denver was rested and at home against the team they should have beat. You're right that Cleveland doesn't look like a horrible team, but it's still like Denver. That's the Nuggets. They're supposed to be better than that team, especially at home when you're rested.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the reality is much like last year. Like, I just don't think that right now, they're not a very good team.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Right now, I don't have a ton of confidence in them.
But I just don't necessarily care either. Is the problem is like everyone else is just like, but they're not good. Like they've got to get good or they're going to be bad. And it's like, no, they can be bad now and they'll probably be good later because this is the NBA.
Right.
And a lot of the teams that are good now will not be good later.
Well, I think there's only 2 teams that are good in the West, and
Yeah.
one of them lost tonight. I think the Warriors are very good. I mean, they look like
Yep.
I mean, they're 8-1. All of the markings of their former glory are there: the assists, the defense, the shooting, and then the Jazz. But the Jazz lost to Orlando tonight. That's a pretty bad loss.
Yeah, their thing is that they haven't played. They haven't basically been in the same city for more than 2 days to start the season. So their schedule doesn't look like it, but here's what basically what's happened. It's been like road trip back, road trip back, road trip, road trip, road trip back, road trip back. Like they're bouncing all over. The Jazz.
Well, they're 7-3, and I think they're the second best team in the West right now. So even, I mean, that only strengthens my point that they're actually really good. So but those are the only 2. If you look at the standings, the Mavericks are 3rd in the West right now. The Mavericks are not good.
The Mavericks are not good. The Suns are not good. The Suns are 4th in the West right now. They're not good.
Then you got the Grizzlies, Nuggets. I mean, it's just so everybody is sort of feeling this way outside of the Warriors and Jazz. And that might be, honestly, the personality of the season out West. I mean, look at the Lakers. They look like their season hasn't even started yet. So that might just be the personality here in Denver. That's why I say they banked a win. That's what you need to do. Find a way to win some of these games, and we can analyze the details of it here in 2 months.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll talk about the Michael Porter Jr. situation. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. All right, NBA fanatics, have you heard about Prize Picks? Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. I love it, and I know that you will too. They got the best NBA DFS prop game on the market. They offer more NBA props than any other DFS prop operator, and they offer all the superstar players as well as the bench players, only recording a handful of minutes each game. They offer any prop you can think of, from yardage to touchdowns, even interceptions thrown for football. And our users that deposit and use promo code NBA get a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just use promo code NBA. You pick 2 to 5 players and over-under on their projections, and you can win up to 10 times on any entry, and it's just you versus the projected numbers. They allow mixed sport entries, so you can combo them with Teddy Bridgewater and Von Miller sacks for the Rams, I guess, even though not a great start for Von out there. Use the award-winning app on both the App Store and Google Play. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. It's safe, and they offer fast withdrawals. Don't hesitate. Check out prizepicks.com. Use promo code NBA, or go to the App Store and download the app today. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making us part of your day. Thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available on all platforms. You can also check us out on YouTube. Give us a whole subscribe and a like over there. Okay, Adam. So first quarter versus that Rockets game, MPJ misses a lot of shots and he looks miserable. Like he's just missing everything. And it's just like there was a lot of like, oh, it's the Rockets. Like maybe he can get loose in this game. He's got a breakaway. 2 players kind of peel off to let him dunk. Like Will was there, but they peel off to let him dunk. He goes up. He starts to look like he's going to dunk. Then it turns into a layup, and then he misses it. He lands. He walks back, and like he jogs back. I thought he just blew the layup. Like I genuinely thought he just blew, because he wasn't really reacting until he got down to the end of the court. He goes to the other end of the floor. He's on defense, and he starts grabbing at his high hip. He then leaves the game a few minutes later, does not return with what's called back tightness. Not a doctor. However, I did the Googlings, and I mean, look,
this one's always tough. I'm
not gonna diagnose it. All I'm gonna say is that, like, here's what I'm trying to get to. I was confused because I was like, but why is it his back if he's grabbing his like upper leg? And then like I read up on it, I was like, oh, like there's nerves that directly go in that area. Like that's like very much connected to various back injuries. So out for Monday.
Yeah.
No diagnosis. I haven't checked in to see if there's been an MRI done. I don't know about that so far. I will tell you that I think it's possible that he's going to be out a while. Not like, I don't know how long that's going to be.
It's possible. Yeah. I don't know
that I'm just saying, like, I cannot tell the listeners, our audience, I can't be like, it's gonna be like he might be out like a day or two and then he'll be back. I don't know. Like his timeline at this point when we're recording this on Sunday night is indefinite.
Look, it's possible. You're right. It is indefinite. I don't think they know. I mean, he's ruled out for tomorrow, which tells you, it's not one of those questionable or doubtful or anything like that. It's just out. So we know that. I think the Nuggets have had a hell of a 72 hours. That's what I think. I think the Nuggets have had a hell of a 72 hours and, ruled out for tomorrow. Is this a thing that's going to be a game? Is it 3 games, 5 games? Who knows? But it's certainly, it's at least strong enough that the Nuggets can go into tomorrow fully prepared for, okay, here's who we have, here's who we don't have. And Michael Porter, obviously part of the don't have. This does remind me a lot of last year though, Matt. Last year, Michael Porter played terribly on the first 4 games. And it felt like the Nuggets played terribly alongside him. It just was like there was no rhythm, there's no flow. He goes into the protocols, he's out for 10 days, and the Nuggets kind of established a rhythm and get going. And then when he returned, he sort of had to just fit in around whatever was established, and then slowly, over the course of the seasons became more and more of a bigger piece. So maybe this will follow a similar script. Denver has not looked, they have not had a rhythm. None of these games, other than the Dallas game and the Phoenix game, none of them have looked good. Even the wins, they're 5-4, but they haven't looked good. So maybe Denver starts to establish a rhythm, kind of like they did last year. And then whenever he is ready to return to the team, he can fit in there. But yeah, I mean, that's just kind of where Denver's at right now. And it also might just be one game. We should mention that. We don't know.
No, we don't. We do not know at this point.
Right? He did have back tightness, I think, last season and sat out, and I think he missed just 1 game, maybe 2 games, and then was back.
Would have been good to have gotten an MRI revealed X today.
Yeah. I mean, well, yes, other than other things were going on at the facility today. So that's the only reason I'm trying to hey, who knows? I think the Nuggets are they're spinning in circles at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, let's try and focus in on MPJ because we're going to get into that whole thing in the third. I guess the question is, it seemed early last season like they couldn't quite figure out Jamal and MPJ and Jokic.
Right.
And then MPJ going out kind of simplified things and they just played. Do they have enough?
It's a very legitimate question. Without Michael Porter, do they have enough? Because you're right. Last year, it was well, you still have Murray and Jokic. And that, okay, offense is solved. Now you just need to worry about everything else. And this year, you look at it, they're the 5th worst offense in the NBA with Michael Porter. And by the way, Michael Porter's been a plus 8.5 or something net rating. Yeah. He has been a value add, even if he's not making shots. It's an honest question. I was looking up some different combinations today, though. Jokic's best pairing, though, still involves PJ Dozier, who's likely to replace Michael Porter in the starting lineup. And he's the best because the defense actually goes up a whole other level. All these sample sizes are tiny right now, but this tracks to at least last year, where my thought is Denver's been very good defensively. And if you replace Michael Porter with PJ Dozier, maybe that actually ups your defense. Jokic needs to score about 30 a game for a while, but maybe Denver can just continue this new identity as a defensive team. It can't make the bench worse, can it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question, right? Is has the bench play been the floor? Can it get that's a genuinely interesting question of can the bench be worse? That's genuinely interesting.
So pull on this then. So PJ Dozier likely starts. I can't imagine anybody else would start. I think it's going to be PJ Dozier. So then who's your bench? Austin Rivers probably gets elevated. You got Facu, Rivers, Green, and Green. That's just going with the guys that you already have. So does Marcus Howard slot into there? Does Zeke Naji? Bol?
Zeke plays 3, I think is what happens.
He's a really big 3. Like that.
Yeah.
That kind of triples down on your Dos Verdes lineup. It's kind of a Trace Verdes in many ways. He's an honorary Verdes. So I don't know. Honestly, I don't think you're right that Zeke seems to make the most sense because he shoots and can move his feet, but it doesn't really make sense. I don't know. It'll be interesting to find out.
Where do we think that MPJ helped the most? If I think that a lot of his numbers were Jokic is amazing.
Sure. I mean, sure. Yeah.
where do we think he helped the most? Conceptual gravity?
Yeah, I honestly think it's just like every team, even through all 9 games, when they went to the whiteboard and said, okay, what are we focused in on? Like Michael Porter, don't leave him open was still, even with him shooting 23% or whatever, was still on the top of the scouting report.
Boy, they're thin.
Here's the thing. They're not. They're missing 2 of their 3 max players. That's what makes them thin. We've said this all along. If you add Jamal Murray back to this equation, all of a sudden
everything, yeah.
Now you got Monte Morris as your bench fluid. Like everything starts to look good. But you take out Murray and now Porter, and now you're pretty thin.
But I'll say that was a known though, right? In the offseason.
The Murray part for sure, yeah.
And like I'm gonna beat the dead horse a little bit more here. If you had added a center,
right,
you could conceptually play Green either with the starters at 3, like not JaMychal, Jeff.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
Like play Jeff either with the starters, or you're able to have Jeff fill in the backup small forward minutes. Like this is the whole thing. Is like they've basically been like, well, we've signed like all these guards, so PJ, you're playing small forward, even though you're a guard, and Jeff Green, you're playing center, even though you're a forward, and like, this could have been solved by.
Yeah, but I mean, look, Matt. Here's just going to be my defense of this. It goes back. Why don't you have a backup small forward on the roster? Because when you had one, he played over Michael Porter into clutch time. You had to get rid of one to say, hey, you have to play Michael Porter. True. And then why don't you have a backup center? Because they sent 2, neither played. It's like, well, okay, we're not going to do this. So part of this is we're at. It's taken a couple of years, but it does feel like we're at this. They were thin in those areas for a reason.
I'll say this though. The front office, and you and I both know this, and this is normal, right? Like the front office of Malone are better aligned than a lot of coaches in their front office across the league. No. Like they're better aligned. I will say that. However, they're going to have points of contention. They've had points of contention before. They had points of contention over Jamal and Jameer. They had points of contention over MPJ and Paul. Like they've had points of contention over all the young guys, right? However, I do think that especially in a shortened season, especially given what the Nuggets have been through in terms of scheduling wise over the past year and in 3 months, I think that even if there's a problem with the idea of, okay, but we gave you a center last year and you didn't play him, you still have to give him the option. And if he chooses not to use it, then it's on him. Right? Like if you give Malone a viable NBA center and he elects to go with the small ball, the Dos Verdes, right? Then that's his decision and he's tanking it. Right. But like where I get to as perennial Malone defender is I'm like, okay, I'm willing to criticize him for the things that, like when he wasn't playing Bones, I was like, that's a mistake. He needs to do this. Like he's just being stubborn about wanting to give these veterans a chance. And he needs to like take the lifeboat that's in front of him. And he eventually did, right? But there's no lifeboat for the front court on the bench.
Right. There really isn't. Yeah, there really isn't.
So that's my thing is like throw him a lifeboat, get him a center.
Do you feel Denver's path forward? I mean, let's just say as a thought experiment that this 4-game homestand there without Michael Porter, which by the way, it's a homestand. You want to win a homestand. You want to win games, bank wins. But without it, do you feel like their path is great defense and Jokic being, I mean, Jokic is already carrying a lot, but he might actually have to carry about 5-10% more?
No, I think this is what I genuinely think. I think that we're going to see offenses start to like we're seeing a few signs of it league wide. Like things are
starting to fall,
to de-ice a little bit. Like Will Barton shoots, like he hasn't shot badly, right? But like Will Barton shoots a little bit better in that Rockets game. That's a comfortable win, right? Like Monte shoots a little bit better in that game. Yeah. It's a comfortable win. They just need and a lot of this is also just like JaMychal, right? I don't think JaMychal is a completely lost cause as a shooter, though he was good last year.
Yeah,
right? Like JaMychal knocks down a few threes, that helps. Yeah. Like there's ways to help with this. I think you can balance it out where it's like, all right, we're like a defensive team, not quite as good, but we've got like a functioning offense. It doesn't have to be great. Right. Just don't be horrible. shots fall a little bit and you're there, they can be a profoundly, this is the big key, is they can be a profoundly mediocre team with a good record. And that's what they need to be.
Yep.
Is like the Nuggets are not going to inspire you as a fan for a while. Like they'll get there.
I mean, I think players will. I mean, look, Yoke's been inspiring, but I think it's going to be like that, almost frustrated. Why is nobody helping out? Or Will goes off like, where was Gordon tonight? Or this it might just be like that every single night. Like there might be some guy that it's like, I'm so let down by this guy every night.
Let's try and figure out exactly where we're at on the panic button. We'll do that after we go to break. Let's do that first, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about exactly how bad the situation is. But first, I want to tell you about DirecTV. This sound familiar? You got one device that lets you catch the game live. You got another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you got your neighbor's best friend's login for all that good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simpler way to get all that entertainment you love, including your Denver Nuggets, without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together, and that's DirecTV Stream. It brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. No more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, no annual contract. Get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies by package. We're also brought today by Built Bar. I've got a new Built Bar read, Adam. I'm very excited. Very excited for this one. All right. I love Thanksgiving. You got all the foods and the treats. My mom makes this cherry salad. It's basically just Miracle Whip and cherry pie filling with pineapple, but God, I love it. I'm the only one in the house that eats it, and it's my favorite thing from when I was a kid. Maybe you want a yummy dessert, but it isn't so full of calories and sugar because I'm trying to stay off of stuff like cherry salad. That's the perfect time for Built Bar. Built Bar is the new holiday dessert. Feast on something delicious and feel good about it. One slice of pie has over 300 calories, and that's on the low end. Most Built Bars are only 130 calories and only 4 grams of sugar with plenty of protein. Replace that coconut cream pie with coconut Built Bar, or go for a raspberry Built Bar instead of that raspberry pie. Lots of good flavors to replace any pie. Low calorie, low carb, low fat, high protein, covered in 100% real chocolate too. Built Bar is a great option for when you're hungry. If Thanksgiving isn't coming soon enough, go for a Built Bar or two. Share some of your family gatherings. They'll make things less awkward. Maybe Aunt Betty hasn't had a Built Bar yet. My brother-in-law is an absolute beast when it comes to conditioning, and he's always starving when he comes back from a run. And so I've been giving him Built Bars whenever he comes back. New surprises all month, including limited time flavors arriving at Built.com regularly. Check the site often. There's nothing like a Built Bar Black Friday. Mark a calendar. Black Friday will be a huge event with all sorts of surprises. Go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15, LOCKED15, and you'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. We'll be right back at Locked On Nuggets. Final segment here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making Locked On Nuggets your first listen each and every day. Now make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball, where Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and it's available on all platforms. All right, Adam. It's interesting because I think you're the most optimistic about the team sometimes because of your never-ending confidence in Nikola Jokic, which is well-earned. You've been right the entire way. You are also one to get extremely frustrated when the team is not well built around him, when the team does not execute well around him. I talked to you earlier today. We were on the phone. I could sense you the idea of losing this homestand's got you a little, I wouldn't say shook, shivering. Maybe that's the word.
I feel like I see it coming. Maybe I'm being too much of a pessimist here, but look, here's the only thing. I'm not too concerned about the Nuggets this season. I just know last year there were ripple effects to Denver getting off to that slow start. And Denver now with 4-game homestand that I think is a kind of a tough one. You've got Miami, Indiana, Atlanta, Portland. I just the next 4, I feel like you got to go 2-2 on them to just not feel like you're starting to compromise or press or whatever. And that's just kind of what I'm staring at. So it's not really panic. It's just I see a bummer ahead. I see some of the joy maybe not being there going forward, but maybe I'm wrong.
Can I ask you, how does this roster play with joy?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, it's
so
really true.
this is one of the things. It's just if MPJ, let's say the MPJ comes back, let's say he only misses a day, they dodge a bullet, he's okay. I'm concerned about it, but let's say he's back for Wednesday. even if MPJ hits shots, like if MPJ hits shots, it's helpful.
Oh no,
It
no,
helps their net rating.
strong disagree. Yeah, no, I think it
But
opens things up. I think it
right,
opens
but like
things up.
that's what I'm trying to say is like it's helpful, but like it's not going to look right. It's not going to like
Oh,
playing with
I don't.
MPJ.
But that's what I'm saying. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't. What game was it? Was it the Memphis game? I think where it was one of these teams took their best defender off of Michael Porter, and I don't remember. I don't remember if they switched it to Gordon or Barton or whatever. But I just remember thinking like, this is crazy. Even the other teams like whatever, man. Like he's not, So I kind of disagree. Michael Porter, if he's shooting 40% on the year, Denver looks meaningfully better. They probably have one more win, and some of these close wins that didn't feel so great probably feel a lot better.
But they're not going to feel joyful. Like that's what I'm trying to say is like, is the offense going to feel joyful even if he's hitting these shots? Like it's still going to look clunky.
I mean, look, they're a defensive team now. Maybe they wouldn't be a defensive team. Like honestly, maybe they wouldn't be the second best defense. They'd be the 10th best defense, and so that's just all the games are the exact same closeness. Yeah. I don't know. Maybe you're right, Matt. But look, Michael Porter when he's on fire, it's pretty fun to watch.
Okay.
So a little bit extra spacing, opens things up. It's fun. But you're right. I think your broader point is we've seen the ball is popping Nuggets, and yeah, I don't expect that version of them. To make a lot of appearances this year
until February,
until Jamal Murray comes back. Yeah. And then the ball should be popping for sure.
I mean, I do want, by the way, I want to shout that out. As much as I think Austin has really disappointed you this season, I loved what he brought in that Rockets game. It was just like a handful of possessions. That drive where he got past his defender, got to the rim, kick out to the corner. Monte misses it. Like Malone called it out. Like that was good offense, right? Like I think that there are players on this team that can create good offense. I think that many of them do not play on the bench in the backcourt. But like, I don't know. I feel like there's a possibility. Like here's the other thing. There are times this season where the starters have looked like they're absolutely just vibing. Like Monte's hitting shots and Will's doing his thing and like pumping up the crowd and Jokic is making plays and Gordon is engaged on the defensive end and then like finishing stuff at the rim. Like that starting unit still has a lot of punch. Like it is not Jokic.
Well, I'll tell you this. I am very curious to see. Last year, I felt like when Michael Porter entered the protocols, the Nuggets starting unit got a little extra pep in their step, and I'm curious to see if that happens tonight. Like, let's not kid ourselves. He's added a weight to the season. Like you can kind of see it.
It's so weird. Like, okay, here's the thing. I feel like there's this entire subtext that goes on with him, and like by the way. I want to be very clear. Like, I really hope MPJ is okay. Like, back injuries they sound horrible. They sound miserable. But like, I'm trying to figure out why it is that like, and I'll say this: the organization is very good about stepping in front of guys that are down. Like, they are very good about protecting them, right? Like, it's hard for us because we don't get in the locker room. Like, you used to be able to find that, right? Like when we used to be able to go in the locker room, you could at least like talk to a guy on the side. And there would be like veiled comments that you could be like, oh, like he actually like let something slip, right? But like Joker, I don't think is ever gonna like he's always just gonna blame himself. That's his MO.
Oh, he's never, yeah, he's too shrewd in those media pressers.
Yeah, well, and part of it I think is genuine though. I think he just genuinely is always like, well, no, I could be better. Like I gotta be better. But like Will goes out of his way to step in front of Mike. Like he goes out of his way, I think, to be like, no, like Mike's gonna be fine. We get to help him out, right? But there's something about him that still creates some sort of like the frequency always seems a little off. Yeah. And I'm trying to understand how that is and why it was different last year towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
Right? Like I have a hard time. Like I'll say this. You have concerns about the vibe. I don't feel like I have any sort of handle on the vibe. I don't know what's going on.
Well, I'll highlight this. And look, one of the things we should probably say is, who knows did Michael Porter hurt it on that dunk, or has he been dealing with something for all season? And does that partially explain? I mean, we don't know. That's just, we haven't heard anything. There's been no indication of that, but maybe that it would make sense that, oh, okay, well, he wasn't fully healthy entering the season, so this is that. But to talk about the vibe, somebody posted this on Reddit, but I actually commented on it during we were doing the watch along for DNVR. So we were watching the game alongside, a bunch of our audience. The opening tip, Jokic tips the ball. Michael Porter doesn't run after it. Jokic looks at him like, dude, you could have gotten that, or you could have like at least made an effort on it. The very same next play, same thing. There's a rebound. He kind of turns and looks at it, and Jokic is like, bro, you could have had that rebound if you would have just like gone and tried for it. So I think that's the stuff I'm talking about with a vibe of he's just on this different wavelength where sometimes I think guys are looking at him like, why didn't you cut here? Why didn't you rebound that? Why didn't you grab we remember the Malone video we saw the other day where somebody swiped the ball out of MPJ's hands and Malone says, like you could see him frustrated on the bench saying, just hold on to the ball. That's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, that just, you don't see that with PJ Dozier. Jokic is looking at him and do this, or anybody else on the roster, really. So that's all I'm trying to say. Is it a big deal? I don't know, but I just notice it with him, and I don't notice it with anybody else.
I will say we're going to come off as very.
Yeah, we are. This is just the nature of the conversation today.
No, not just that, but like, I'll say this: I'm going to come off as very defeatist and like, it is what it is. Like that's basically where I'm at. Because fans want solutions, right? And like oftentimes it turns to like the camera turns to Malone, right? If the offense is uncreative, why doesn't Malone make the offense more creative? Well, I got bad news for you. We're into the season. It's hard to do that in the middle of a season. If you want to reinvent your offense, that's something you got to do in the offseason. Because like getting guys to like reinvent a new play, they are having practice, but so much of that is like you're just trying to address issues in what you're doing now. Like you're very rarely installing new stuff in my experience. So I don't know that you can like be more creative in terms of the offense mid-season.
By the way, it was meaningful that they even scheduled a practice today. It ended up getting canceled or whatever, but it was, I think we all thought when it came across like, oh wow, they're going to practice
after a game,
in between games. Yeah.
He stopped doing that 2 years ago. He made a deal with them when he was tightening up and said, if you, like basically, and like I think Paul Millsap was actually this is my guess, and I have an educated guess that Paul Millsap was like the impetus for this. That basically Paul was like, look, if we win the game, can we have practice off the next day? And Malone was like, yeah. And then they just started winning. Like it was during that run where they started getting back into it in 2018. That's where it happened.
Yeah,
it was like that was part of what kickstarted. It was like the
funniest. It was
thing
unique that the Nuggets had a practice even scheduled for today. Yeah.
I want to touch on this with Malone because I think it's something that the fan base deserves to like think about. Okay. Malone, I think is going to be a little nuts for a while. The reason I say this, especially if MPJ misses any significant amount of time. The last time that Michael Malone was coaching a team and his star player started the year and had an absence, he got fired. He got fired after the team started off and was above 500. DeMarcus Cousins had
a great point. I forgot it. Yeah, you're right.
He had something meningitis, not encephalitis. It was like
meningitis. Was it?
Meningitis.
Yeah,
and he was gone. And the Kings started losing because they did not have their best player in DeMarcus Cousins. And then and then one night they fire Malone. And like, so as much as I think that Malone needs to do the opposite, Malone needs to basically be like, look, guys, we're just surviving.
Right.
Good job. Like, and that's why he basically was after that Rockets win. I've seen him be pissed after wins before. You have too.
Yeah.
Like, there are games where he's livid. And this game, he was basically like, yeah, this is how it's going to have to be. Like, there's a reality here of they're missing $35 million in salary before MPJ.
Right.
And when you're out that, but I do think that this is going to cause a problem because Malone, I think more than anything this season, needs to be very zen. And I don't think he's going to be able to because he's going to be looking over his shoulder because of what happened to him in Sacramento.
It's entirely possible. It's entirely possible. I mean, but also possible for me is that this Nuggets team, though they are less talented, rolls for a short period. And I don't know. Hopefully Michael Porter only misses one game or only a few games. But, teams get exploited over like 10 games. when you have weaknesses. Like then like the scouting reports like, oh, okay, now this is what they look like. But sometimes over 2 or 3 games, a team catches lightning in a bottle because it's like, hey, nobody knows what this new version of us is. We know ourselves better than the scouting report right now because nobody has seen us without Michael Porter, with PJ Dozier in this lineup, with Zeke Naji off the bench or what have you. So you might be able to catch a little bit of bump. And they kind of need it. They need to play. Like, what is Miami's scouting report on the Nuggets tomorrow? They probably don't have a great handle on that because they just don't know. They don't know the roster that well. Nobody does.
I mean, I'll tell you what they're going to do. They're going to zone and they're going to play Jokic one-on-one.
That's going to make the game so boring. Can I tell you, I have a rec team right now. I've played some basketball. I've got a 67-year-old on my team. It's like a bunch of guys that I've just known for 25 years or whatever. And teams go zone against us and we can't shoot. And it's so unfun. It's just the least fun playing basketball I can have because you generate nothing but wide open shots. And it's just, there's no hope. That's going to be, you're right. That would be a great strategy. And Aaron Gordon and PJ Dozier better bring their 3-point shot.
Yeah, because they're going to zone and they're going to play straight up with Bam on Jokic and not bring help. That's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do. It's going to be this. I'll just tell you, I've already bet the Heat. I will go ahead and let you know I have bet the Heat in this game. This seems like a nightmare matchup.
They're really good offensively and defensively. They're good.
I try and go the contrarian way with the Nuggets, right? Where it's like, oh, they're in a really bad spot. They're up against adversity. Now I'll bet on the Nuggets. I'm not doing it this time. This is like
Miami's one of your teams, though. Yeah, Miami's one of your teams that you kind of are like a believer.
I mean, look, they've just been really, really, really good. That win versus Utah was a great win. That was a great win the other night. Yeah. They have one slip-up game basically versus Boston. And other than that, they've been a juggernaut. Yeah. They've been really good. Tyler Hero's like that bench is going to get slaughtered tomorrow.
I mean, maybe Bull is the difference, man.
I will say this. I loved what PJ Dozier brought in that Rockets game. I liked him hitting the jumper coming off of the pick. I liked his defensive energy. He had huge rebounds down the stretch. Like PJ Dozier's good. Who's the guy on the team that you think can like step up and have an unexpected burst of the season that could help?
Oh, PJ Dozier is no question. And it's funny. Okay. PJ Dozier hasn't played a lot with Jokic. I think he's a better Jokic player. Like he's kind of Aaron Gordon-esque in that he's not going to like wow you, but I do think next to Jokic, he can do things that are important to kind of keep those types of lineups honest defensively and honest offensively. So he's the guy. I think he moves into a more comfortable role.
I have to check this because I have to be sure. Okay. Yeah. Even with the 2 threes he hit, Facu Campazzo was a -7 in the second half in that Rockets game.
It was not great.
You're just not gonna give me no oxygen on the Facu stuff.
I mean, it's your everyday point. I just don't know what to say.
All right.
I mean, he hit 2 big threes that they don't win without him. They were like Hail Mary 3-pointers.
He did. Okay, let's wrap it up. We'll be back after the Heat game with a recap for you. Make sure to follow Locked On Nuggets on Spotify. Make sure to check it out on YouTube. Hit us up with questions. We're going to do a mailbag. Thanks for the questions that you already got in. We'll do a mailbag later this week. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll talk to you guys again soon on Locked On Nuggets.